Is it very hard? Next decade. I'm so happy today because we have so many people who've come from UPM, the students from UPM. It's amazing to have such a lovely, big, lively audience. And today we've got some of the students going to read. We have got new writers, emerging writers, and we also have some very experienced writers with a lot of very influential publications behind them. So a real mixed bag, which is as it should be for readings at Seksan. This space is, I hope, a welcoming space for all writers who are in Malaysia or happen to be passing through. To kick us off, I'm going to invite the two writers from UPM to come and read for us. We've got Isni Isyati Mohammed Shuhud and Hamza Rasuli.
Yeah,
right?
That's it.
Okay, I did okay there. But I'm going to ask their lecturer, and Zainor, to come and say a few words first and tell us a bit about the program that they're on. Is that okay? Yeah, just introduce them.
Pleasure for me and my class to be here. I actually approached Sharon, asking her whether I could have a few of my students read their work, because this is actually a course, creative writing, which is offered under the Master of World Literature program in Ethiopia. And what I discovered from this class, I think I have some really wonderful, talented students, and I just feel that we should really get them to share their work and see what kind of response we'll get. So I'm very pleased that we are given this opportunity by reading at Seksan. Maybe I will start with Hamza. Hamza is my student from Morocco, and he will be reciting his poem. This was actually one of the tasks given in class, where I asked the students to write about a family meal that they had. So please welcome.
Thank you very much. So, as Dr. Zano said, this was an assignment that we were assigned in creative writing. For me, I wouldn't say this is the first poem that I have written, but this is the first poem that I'm comfortable reading to an audience. So, it's called A Mountain of Memories. 6 chairs around the square table that I had touched up and varnished a few weeks earlier. I sat alone. I was always the first to sit down, even though it meant I had to help set up the table. My 2 sisters joined in, giggling as they continued the conversation they had started in their room. Hearing their voices, my mother called their names to remind them of their small final tasks. They brought in spoons, fermented milk, and a couple of bowls of soup. Soon everyone sat in their chairs. Everyone had a place around the boxy table, as if our names were written in the dark, shiny wood. In the middle lay the massive glazed clay dish holding a colorful mountain, the pale dune of couscous grains that shine like specks of sand after a fresh rain, topped with logs of carrots, zucchini, turnips, and pumpkin, like logs of wood in a campfire, chickpeas with onion and cinnamon peeking wherever there is a gap, and chunks of mutton at the peak. This was a typical Moroccan Friday lunch. How I miss those Fridays. Spoons clicked, pouring the hot broth on the fragrant grains, cut pieces of steamy vegetables, and scooped up the bite into hungry mouths that said no words, and that's the sound of appreciation. This dish was no different from all others that my mother made. They were all made with love, made with hands that carried, caressed, cared, spanked, and waved. Thank you.
Falling for her was never in Azim's plan when he first moved to Sarawak. As a new teacher, he had always been told that sooner or later, the ministry would transfer him to the rural areas of East Malaysia after his graduation. He did not dread it unlike many of his friends who hailed from the teachers' college. He took it as an opportunity to expand his view and improve his teaching skills, especially in a new, almost foreign surrounding, like in a rural school in Cebu. Plus, he would be earning extra from the additional allowance that came with the transfer, meaning that he could have more savings for his future plans. Of course, his mother would not like the idea of her only son to be an ocean apart from her, but he convinced her that he was only going to be there for no longer than a couple of years. In his plan, he would spend a stint in Cebu, maybe pick up the Sarawakian dialect, get enough money, come back home to the peninsula, and marry the woman of his mother's choice. He thought he had all figured out and he was ready. But he was definitely not ready for Maya. When he reported for his first day at his new school, he did not expect that a woman in a blue baju kurung with shoulder-length hair would mean so much to him in the future. Perhaps fate has decided its course for him and intervened on that very day as he was smitten from the first sight by how pretty she looked that Monday morning when the headmaster introduced him to the teachers. He flushed when they finally exchanged some words during morning break at the canteen. From the enchanting conversation that he had, he learned that he was the same age as him, a local Iban girl who taught English as well at that school. Their friendship progressed as they spent a whole lot of their time together in the teacher's office. Their discussions were mainly about materials to be used in class, and then they started to talk about their studies, their families, and their life philosophies. Azim was mesmerized of how passionate Maya was when she talked about her family and the heritage of the Iban tribe. She showed him the pictures of their rumah panjang, her tattooed uncles, and even the suckling pig from one of the Gawai celebrations, which Azim found fascinating. From the teacher's office, they extended their conversation on the WhatsApp app beyond the school-related message group to as far as to meeting outside of the school at the Kopitiam in Cebu. Even though they had to go through hours of journey just to reach there, Azim did not mind it because he could spend more of this full time admiring Maya's beauty, exploring her mind, and learning her soul. Noticing their blossoming relationship, the teachers and even the students continuously teased them, which made them both blush. Seeing that she smiled every time somehow gave Azim a glint of hope and confidence in his own feelings towards her. He grew more and more impressed each day of how beautiful Maya was, both on the inside and the outside, that he could no longer contain his heart's desires. When he confessed to her, he then understood what it means by a dream come true. When she returned his feelings, suddenly he realized then that he had to change his plan. Instead of letting his mother decide a wife for him, he would marry his own choice instead. Their love continued to grow stronger that Azim had started to talk about the matters of settling down together and building a marriage of a lifetime. He was so excited that he was the first to ask how many children Maya wanted. He was pretty sure that she was the destined one for him, like she was his soulmate. However, in between conversations of dream wedding and matters of home decoration, Azim felt something off from the way she talked to him. Somehow there was always a sense of sadness in the way her lips curved to form a smile. The feeling was unavoidable every time that one day he inquired of the thing that was bothering him. Maya asked him back, "Darling, when I marry you, is it compulsory for me to convert to Islam?" Azim indeed did not expect that kind of question. He said, "Sayang, isn't that the law?" A moment of uncomfortable silence passed through them before she voiced out again, "What if I don't want to become a Muslim?" Azim struggled to find an answer to the question. He was confused by her words, the intention, and the message that she wanted to send to him. Was she going to say that she did not want to marry him? Did she feel like this was going too fast? "I don't understand, Sayang. What do you mean?" "You know how much I love my family, don't you? You understand that I have lived my whole life this way, right?" Azim shook his head a little and said, "I'm sorry, Sayang, but I'm still confused." "Don't get me wrong, darling. It's not that I don't want to marry you. In fact, I am so in love with you that I cannot bear losing you over this thing. But we're talking about my belief, my faith. the sole force I rely my life on to. Maya then continued, I want to be with you, but I want to be myself too. Azim could see that she was pleading with her eyes. In his attempt of trying to fathom the situation that they were currently in, Azim did not contact her for a few days after that and avoided talking to her at school. He left her hanging, trying to untangle the confusion that puzzled him. How could two people with different faiths get married here in this country? It was ridiculous in his belief. He knew a couple of his friends who got married with people from other races. They did not question the law of Islam even, here in Malaysia. For him, it was just on paper and she could still carry on her daily routines as usual. He would not mind it. Then he thought, what would his family feel about this? What would her family feel about this? He shivered even thinking about it. He didn't know what to do with all the uncertainties floating around his mind. All that he knew and certain of, he wanted Maya and her happiness in his life. He was determined to get married and he had to come up with a new plan. Knowing that her roots was important to her, he finally texted her, asked if he could come and meet her family to talk about this matter. He was glad that she agreed to it. During the school holidays, they traveled back to her hometown in Betong. Maya's father, Patrick, was the first one to embrace Azim as if he had known him for a long time. Their arrival was welcomed warmly by her family, almost felt like he was celebrated at the Rumah Panjang. He finally met all of her family members that he only saw through pictures before. He did have fun, but he could not distract his mind away from his plan. That night, when Patrick invited Azim to lounge with him on the veranda, he figured that it was the golden time for him to express his intention to have his daughter's hand in marriage. He has to convince Patrick that he would be the best partner for Maya and conversion would not be an option. He was nervous, of course, so he took a huge breath, inhaling as much courage as he could. Uncle, I have known Maya for more than a year now. I really love her. I believe that she loves me too, and we're both ready to get. Patrick placed a hand on Azim's shoulder, interrupting his long practice speech. Azim, I have heard stories about you, good stories even. I know that you are a great person, and you will make Maya happy, which is already enough for me. But it's not me who you need to convince. I have long accepted that once an Iban girl falls in love with a Malay boy, they will definitely follow the religion, no question asked. Azim felt like Patrick has more to say, so he did not say a word. Patrick drew alongside and continued. Maya was really proud of her ancestors, her culture, and especially her own family. She had seen our family members not coming home for gawai because they have converted to Islam. Their spouses are not comfortable with the festivities that we have. It is somehow they forget their roots, abandoning their family in the process. But I trust you. From Maya's stories, you have been great to her, and she truly believes that you are the one, that you would not let her abandon this family. You put so much effort on learning about us that I now accept you into ours. I know the reason why you come here, so I'm giving you the permission for Maya to convert to Islam. Don't worry, Azim, he assured Azim, although his eyes spoke differently. Patrick's words had indeed left a huge mark on Azim's heart. He could not imagine how torn Patrick must be on the inside. He was surely not ready for Patrick's approval this quick. Indeed, he was glad that he came so that he could say these words in person. Uncle, I come here with another intention. I understand everything and I'm ready to risk it all. I would like to ask your permission if I could marry Maya in Indonesia, where the law does not require any conversion. In front of Patrick's surprised face, Azim secretly wished that Maya could see all of this happening with her own eyes, which little did he know, Maya was listening from behind the wall the whole time and grateful for his existence in her life. Right, that's all. Thank you so much for your attention.
English is not correct. I just want to make it for people to be comfortable with for Malay and English this way. So this book is about racism problem in Malaysia. As you may agree, and in my point of view, after Malaysia Baru is become more and more uglier day by day. That's what I see.
Yeah.
That's why I
Yeah.
come up with this book. I'm Bumi Putra. I mean, I benefit from all the system here. But I see when I meet my non-Muslim friend, which is, I think this is something's not right. Maybe I just take some excerpt from it. I think you can understand. I started with where in this kampung we have a surau, which is like a mosque. Apa yang saya mana nak hidup dalam dia. That's why hidup dalam hidup kan. Kan things that we need to show that we are really need each other. And we share the same thing in Malaysia. Syndrome otak beku. That means when you got racism, actually your mind is really like an ice. You know, you cannot think beyond that. And there's a cartoon about how we need to learn.
It's called Two Pretty Men. And I like to begin with a little bit of background to why I wrote the story. Because, you know, it's two pretty men. What inspired me was a nursery rhyme that I chanced upon when I was surfing the internet a long time ago. This was written sometime in the 1990s, 98, 99, you know, at the height of the Reformasi and the accusations of sodomy in politics. This is the nursery rhyme, Two Pretty Men. Robin and Richard were two pretty men. They stayed in bed till the clock struck 10. And out starts Robin and looks at the sky. Oh, brother Richard, the sun's very high. You go before with a bottle and bag, and I will come after with little Jack Nag. Now, what struck me about the nursery rhyme was not so much the rhyme as the illustration that came with the rhyme. It showed two young men in bed, in the same bed. One is still asleep, the other is up, looking out through the window at the sun. Now this was a reproduction of, somebody downloaded a nursery rhyme book from the 1890s or early 1900s. And I was struck by it because I thought, wow, in like 100 years, male friendship has lost its innocence. Because now nobody can look at a picture like that without thinking homosexuals, right? And I wondered about humanity. That's why I usually write. I wonder, I have questions. What is it about people's minds that make them see nasty things with the most innocent effects? And out of these thoughts came the story. I'm going to read to you the part which I, you know, as a writer, I felt a flow. It just came. And I'm not quite sure why it came like that, but having read it a couple of times, and since the last reading, I realized actually it's about friendship. It's about human relationship. It's about how we form connections to people without words. Without having to say a word, we make connections. So this is about friendship. Doesn't matter if it's male or female. The narrator here is a minor official diplomat, yeah? And she is visiting a friend in London who, with her husband, planned to have an art gallery. They had, in fact, an art gallery, and they're specializing in artworks by artists from third world countries. And the hostess wants her to meet two of her friends. One of them is an artist who is from Hong Kong, Chinese, and the other is an Englishman who was born and brought up in Sabah. So, this is the narrator. friends. They told me nothing about Andrew Young's art. Typical. Typical too, my reaction. I decided that since his art wasn't forced on the anvil of poverty and starvation, it couldn't be any good. The moment I set eyes on him, however, all these unworthy preconceptions vanished from my mind, driven out by a rapid succession of other, more disturbing impressions. My first thought, as I watched him walking out through the French doors towards where I was standing in the garden, was how ethereal he looked, how willow-like his movements. The second thought, as he came close enough for me to make out his features, was that he was in ill health. The third thought, as he stopped in front of me to introduce himself, was, my God, he's dying. It was his eyes. They were black and lusterless, seeming to reflect no light. Like the eyes of a dying pup I once held in my hands. The pup, astray, had somehow found its way into my garden, staggering drunkenly up the driveway, vomiting blood in great pools. There was no outward sign of a wound, but when she looked up at me, I knew that whoever or whatever struck her had wounded her to the core of her being. Her black eyes were matte, dark, saturated with hopelessness and the knowledge of death. Yet, she had licked my hands.
It's all relative, isn't it?
Yeah, one wine.
An experience when I first landed in Japan and the cultural shocks that I faced. The second part of the story looks at the challenges I faced and how I learned from them. So in 1983, we landed at Nagoya Airport on a freezing October evening. We included my husband, baby, and me. In those days, there was no jet bridge to connect a plane to the main airport building, so we had to descend the stairs into the cold winter air. The wind howled and buffeted us, and our Akachan, baby, started to wail.
I'm only going to give you excerpts. It's about 3 women whose lives cross and recross, but I'm only going to give you excerpts that describe the women, and then if you want to know the rest of what happened, you've got to buy the book. Yeah.
She's getting paid.
So the first woman is I'll give you the first character, the walking women. Kudai Mami gulped down a glass of water. She had her day well planned. The third week of the month, where money was tight and tension mounted between her only son and her daughter-in-law, was not a good time for her to be home too much. A 5th child had arrived, and an aging mother-in-law was an unspoken burden. So the rotund widowed Kudai Mami donned a fresh white choli or a blouse and sari, combed her white but still ample hair into a tight, neat knot.
Dixie, and he told me, I've got this idea, why don't you put together little vignettes to remind people of actual details of all these little crimes? Yeah. In fact, each one of the crimes here actually deserves a book on its own, and roughly 1/3 of them do. And roughly 1/3 of them do have their own book. So anyway, Andrew and I started working on it. Two of the most critical people, two very distinguished Malaysians who helped us were the late Kapal Singh and Khoo Kay Kim. I was very grateful to them, and at some point, publication took a back seat, and it looked like the book might not come out. But when last year there was a change of government, and the 2 gentlemen also had already passed on, I felt I had to take the opportunity to get this book out. And I worked with Marshall Cavendish, and the book is thankfully now in the stores and doing quite well, I've been told. So it's a little bit unusual. I mean, we've had a variety of presenters, Zunas with had a very entertaining presentation of his political satire in comic form. And a lot of people have read poems and short stories, which is actually a medium I'm very interested in too. But this particular book is non-fiction. 1952, it was becoming increasingly clear that the communist threat was going to be defeated militarily. But the detention of a young girl, Li Meng, and her subsequent trial brought the country back into the international spotlight. Aged 26, Li Meng, born Li Ten Tai, had joined the Communist Party of Malaya during World War II while she was still a teenager. She was active in underground activities in the Ipoh area and claimed that her mother had been detained by the Japanese during the war. When the British came back and reasserted their colonial rule, Li Meng was one of those who continued the fight. Indeed, she assumed a leadership role despite her tender years. Eventually, she was captured by the British and tried for possession of a hand grenade, which was a questionable charge because at the time she was not in possession of one, but she had been photographed with it. The trial was to prove sensational. Li Meng's good looks and tale of woe made her a sympathetic figure, and her lawyer, D.R. Srinivasagam, was about to prove himself one of the most engaging orators of that time. No less than 6 former guerrillas testified against Li Meng, saying that she was the woman photographed in a camp holding a grenade. When one of them said that he was a non-shooting participant in a raid which had resulted in the death of 2 police officers, Srinivasagam put him in his place by asking him if he was there for sightseeing purposes.